Hi, Jacob Field here from Ripehouse Advisory. Today I'm going to be taking you through a deep dive of some investigation analysis that we've been performing lately, which I haven't actually seen before in Australia. We're investigating the question, are house and land packages effective investments for us? Now, let me just clarify some definitions here. House and land packages, new home construction, turnkey solutions. They do come in a raft of different names and boxes. All right, what we're talking about is land, whether purchased individually and then a new home is constructed on top of it, whether you're buying a package before or after it is completed. Okay, they all fall into the house and land, and I'm going to be referring to it as H&L today for simplicity's sake. We're talking about some Australian first analysis into the viability and effectiveness of H&L packages as an investment class. Let me dive right in. Before I do, a really quick introduction. Okay, so I've been investing in property now for almost 20 years. All right, I've made a lot of mistakes throughout my journey. All right, I wasn't born into a wealthy family. My dad was on the sole parent pension for many years. It wasn't until I was almost 18 did he actually get a job, and we had, decent money coming into the family. Okay, that needs to be said. I worked very hard and I was very ambitious from an early point into property investment. I bought my first investment property at a very young age, and I did that not because I was greedy. It was because I was really ambitious, because I wanted to improve my lot in life. Okay, that was my driving force. On from there, I've been working in the industry now for 10 years as a professional. We started Ripehouse as a research company right back in 2011. Now, really importantly, for this particular area of focus, I was fortunate enough to own and purchase Australian Property Investor magazine in 2017. Now, overall, my personal mission, which moves into the Ripehouse and business and company mission across all my businesses, it comes down to this. This is my driving force. This is my why, okay? To successfully transfer the value of research and artificial intelligence to investors purchase after purchase, okay? To actually help others generate wealth through property investment. And equally, you've got the positive and the negative, you've got the yin and the yang on the other side of the coin to help avoid the sharks, the false gurus, the spruikers, the slimy salespeople. Sometimes these people are very hard to spot. And I'll give you an example and how this driving force came to be. So when I used to own and run Australian Property Investor magazine, I pulled down an old version. This is December 2010 from my bookshelf before, just to show you and to demonstrate the tangible aspects of property investment. Since I sold that magazine to a Singaporean company, 2017, the ownership of that magazine really changed my perspective of property investment as an industry. Okay, I was shocked through my ownership of that business. I was shocked. I would now, from seeing what I've seen, the dirty tactics, okay, the dirty advertising, the secrets, the deep dark secrets in the industry, daily exposure to them as an industry custodian, owning that magazine as a mouthpiece of the industry. I'm now on a mission to lift the hood. This is part of that mission. With that context in mind, a little bit about me, a little bit about my relevant experienced or professional standing and what I've done, and a little bit about our mission. With that context in mind, let me take a deep dive. Let's get going. I am very aware of your time. I don't want to take up too much of it. I want to move through this content methodically. What I want to talk about it should just make common sense. Okay, this is not crazy. It's pretty simple stuff. Let's just run through it slowly. If there's any questions, reach out to us and we can definitely answer those. The angle I'm taking today is not to say one investment class is better than the other. Okay, let's make no assumptions whatsoever. Let's form hypotheses and then go away and attest them. Okay, that's how we operate in a scientific sense. Okay, there's no assumed knowledge. There's nothing is assumed to work. All right. Let's start, at a very high level by looking at the proposed advantages of H&Ls. Okay, these are a common, pictures, the common lines that are provided as justification for house and land packages, for right or for wrongly. They might exist, they might not. We don't know yet. Let's investigate them one at a time. But these are, at a high level, let's brainstorm together the proposed advantages. If you can think of any more, please ping us back and email us and let us know. These are the big ones. My internal brainstorming here and my exposure to the industry, this is what I see as the proposed advantages of a house and land package. We can get really fussy with a house and land package, the first one there on the list, and find areas set for good growth. All right, this is the assumption. Let's try and prove it, disprove it. We can try and seek out those new housing estates in really good, strong population growth centres, new train lines, Westfield shopping centres, universities, business, employment, all these great things. We can find those areas and we can buy house and land packages there. So let's, assume that we can find good growth with house and land packages. House and land packages provide nice, shiny, new property, all right? Low maintenance. Let's test that assumption, all right? Obviously, it's pretty obvious that they are new, but are they shiny, and is there low maintenance? Depreciation is a big one. Let's investigate depreciation benefits of house and land packages. Let's stress test that. Now, group buys, discounts, rental guarantees, these are structures or strategies I've seen now in different guises for over 10 years in the industry. Let's investigate those and see how effective they are at providing the outcomes as promised. All right, let's take a deep dive there. And as a final note, throughout this conversation, I want to investigate how you can access these properties, how you can buy an investment property with an advisor and not have to pay a cent for the acquisition. Let's investigate that as well. So strap yourself in, let's dive through this. First assumption, let's test it. The hypothesis is well-selected house and land packages in up and coming new precincts can provide good capital growth. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, but here we are looking at the general rule, the most common result that is achievable by the majority of Australians. Let's start there. Let's test this assumption, this hypothesis. So what we've done here, Will has been hard at work. Right? This has been a deep dive. It's been a very difficult deep dive, and Will has spent some time, a considerable amount of time recently in doing this analysis. It is analysis that we are in a unique position to be able to perform, and Will is definitely the right man for the job. As the head of research and analytics here at Ripehouse Advisory, he has an economics degree from University of Queensland. He went into the CBA grad program straight out of uni. Then he went to MyState Bank after that for some time. He ended up working directly in risk and treasury assessment before his time now at Ripehouse as the head of our research department. Okay, he's supported by a wonderful team of professionals. We also have access to our internal property big database that's been building now for over 10 years, and all of our algos and rules that have been built up over that time. So we're in a unique position to be able to perform this analysis, and you'll see in a moment why sometimes it is hard to be able to, it's difficult. This is difficult stuff, guys. So let's try and take a deep dive into it. Now, we began by analysing all new homes constructed in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria since 2016. We only looked at houses. All right, that's the first note that needs to be made. Let me load up some maps of the Brisbane area to begin with. The red areas are the top 20 suburbs for new home construction since 2016. These are the new home hotspots, if you will. Nothing to do with growth. These are where the new homes are constructed. We've got the who's who, the normal, the well-known candidates. You've got Griffin, Mango Hill, Newport, and Burpengary East up in Moreton Bay. Very well known new house and land area, investment area for new house and land packages. You've got Yarrambilla, once again, you've got up into Logan Reserve, Park Ridge, Greenbank, over into Springfield Lakes, some very well known areas for new house and land packages, and into Bellbird Park, into Ipswich. Okay, you've got this cluster down here going down into the Gold Coast. Pimpana, Coomera, Hope Island, Maudsley. Now, I do apologise, guys. I'm filming this today down in Tasmania, so I don't hold that against me, but it usually does mean that my pronunciations are a little bit off. I know these places well. I've been to many of them before, but I can't pronounce them very well. All right. Sydney's once again a who's who. Kellyville, up into Box Hill, Riverstone, Schofields, Marsden Park, up into North Richmond, out into Jordan Springs, down into Austral, Leppington, Denham Court, Edmondson Park, Gregory Hills and Oran Park. These are all very well known new housing suburbs, sometimes in many cases created almost overnight. Okay, let's go down into Victoria. You've got the Cranbourne area, Cranbourne East, Clyde, Clyde North, Officer, up into the North Craigieburn cluster, Mickleham, okay, down into Donnybrook, Woollards. Now over into the Western cluster, Diggers Rest, Plumpton, Rockbank, Melton South, Melton West. This is very well known, Werribee, Wyndham Vale. All of these areas, very high new supply, new house and land, new builds since 2016. Hopefully some familiar names there, guys, so everyone can get some context. All right, let's move forward. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to analyse the growth of new houses, new house and land packages that have been built in the last 5 years. We are trying to measure the real value growth of those properties, the underlying value growth of those properties. This might seem simple, but it's not. It's not straightforward. That's potentially why it hasn't been done before. This is definitive, exhaustive, once and for all analysis. Okay? A few of the issues, the gotchas. If we just look at the average suburb growth rate for the area and go, well, great, we've found now our top 20 new housing supply areas for Queensland, and look at the average growth of those areas, then we're going to have all established dwellings into the mix, and our assessments of new homes and the growth of those new homes is going to be tainted. Okay, the pool, the sample size is going to be tainted, our assessment is going to be incorrect. Okay, so we can't rely on the overall suburb growth rate. Furthermore, another assumption or bubble needs to be popped. The changes in suburb median price do not always mean that the underlying value of those properties in that area has gone up. Okay? It could just mean that the standard of properties has changed or improved, and therefore the value, the median value of those properties that is now selling is higher because of the standard of the property has changed. And I'll say that again because it's really important. You might have in an area a cluster, of 3-bedroom established homes. They might be selling for $400,000. Then suddenly you have this whole raft, this new 100 dwellings that have just been built that are all these flashy new 4-bedroom homes that are now selling for $600,000. The moment they all start selling at $600,000, the suburb median rockets off. Might be $550,000 now. It does not mean that those original 3-bedroom established dwellings have changed in value. It does not mean that these $600,000 dwellings are now worth more or have grown in value either. It just means that the suburb median has changed. So we cannot rely on the suburb median changes. Things are also made far more difficult because house and land packages are typically not sold as normal properties. Very rarely do we actually have a sale on record for these types of properties. The land may have been purchased individually. The property may have been built separately. It might have been built or sold as one package. It might not have been. Okay? Any record of the total purchase cost, the total expenses, the total amount paid, all of these numbers, it's very hard to obtain on the public record. All right? To accurately understand how new house and land packages grow in value, the only way that we've been able to work out how to do this is to make an assessment of those that have actually sold since. And because we cannot compare that sale back to a suburb median, we can only compare sales of a property to other sales of the same property. All right? So this brings us to the only accurate method that we have been able to discover or analyse to assess the capital growth of new house and land packages. So let me say it. Of all the 9,905 houses that were built in Queensland since 2016, 1,061 of them have sold on the open market twice. So let me just say that. It might have been built in 2016, it sold in 2017, and then it sold again in 2019. We've now had 2 years between both sales and we can measure how much the property grew, and then we can calculate the annual growth rate for that property. All right, that is how we can then determine the capital growth for that house and land package, and then we can do that for all of them that are sold, and we can calculate the average capital growth across the sample, across all of those properties. So I might just do this using a practical example. This is a real life house and land package in all of its glory, okay? It was built since 2016 and it's sold twice, okay? The land was sold in 2016 for $225,000. A big, flash, glossy, shiny new property was built on it. It was then subsequently sold, and we don't know this, but it's not necessarily relevant. It was then subsequently sold by the developer, the builder, or someone who bought it from that builder into the market as a completed property, as an established dwelling. It was only very brand new, okay, nice and shiny. It sold here for $725,000. 3 years later, almost 3 years later, it sold for $670,000. You might think this is an exception and not the rule, and I've got news for you there, okay? So that is an example of a property that's sold twice, and we're measuring the rate of change, the capital growth between those two sell points, all right? That is the analysis that we've been able to perform. So let me get back to it. So from these properties that have sold multiple times, we then plotted the average capital growth for all of them. Okay, we've done this in a histogram format, and I'm just going to explain this for you very quickly. All right, the dotted line here was the median annual capital growth for all of these house and land packages that have sold twice. Right, so it's very accurate to determine the annual average growth for this type of property. This change between the light or the darker red and the blue, this line here is the average capital growth for all properties. Okay, this is average capital growth for established dwellings for house and land packages. This is the average normal for all properties. You can see how few house and land packages grew above average, higher than the average capital growth across the board in Brisbane over the same period. The vast majority of properties here performed less than the average for all dwellings. The median capital growth for, and get this, the median capital growth for house and land packages in the 5 years since 2016 was 1.86% per annum. Absolutely, ridiculously low. Absolutely unacceptably low as an investment to even consider, and I'll get to that in a moment. And what is really concerning, this really dark red area here is loss-making properties. Huge chunks of properties have made a loss still after 5 years as an investment. When you compare the amount of properties that have made a loss to the amount of properties that have just performed above average, it is marked, okay? It is scary. It is not acceptable. Like, to be perfectly frank, it is absolutely, fundamentally not acceptable. A huge chunk of properties here have just lost money in real dollar terms over 5 years. Let's keep moving forward. For those properties, so remember the average capital growth per year for new house and land packages in Queensland hotspots, so in the most popular areas with the best storylines, all this wonderful stuff happening, the average capital growth for those properties is 1.86% per annum for the last 5 years. Just letting you know, inflation was pretty much the same. Inflation was around 1.6% for that area, for Brisbane overall over the same period of time. Okay? So $1 today is worth less than $1 5 years ago. So when you look at the inflation-adjusted capital growth of these properties, you can see the blue line was the capital growth and the red line is inflation. We have only outperformed inflation by 1.39% in 5 years. So you buy a house, say for $500,000, you hold it for 5 years, and in real dollar terms, it's worth just over $5,000 more. Okay, absolutely unacceptable. Remember, this is not a once-off. This is the average over a very large number of properties that have been built and then sold twice. So this is very telling. Now, let's compare for a moment these properties, these new house and land packages in Brisbane to other established dwellings in Brisbane over the same period of time. Okay? What is the opportunity cost? So let's run through this. Purchase price, new house and land package. I'm picking on this one, $485,300. Projected value now after 5 years is $537,000. This is your 1.86% growth per annum. It's now worth, what's that, about 50 grand more. $51,781 more over 5 years. This established dwelling, this is a representative property, $485,000 bought in a very similar area. Okay, on the average capital growth for the Brisbane market over that same period of time, it is now projected or worth, according to the CoreLogic Brisbane Price Index, so this is a very common publicly accessible index of property price growth for Brisbane, over the same period through to the end of the June quarter this year, the average established dwelling in Brisbane would have grown $127,846. That is a very large difference. A difference of $76,000 and over $76,000 in your pocket when you compare established to house and land packages. This is the difference. This should be in investors' pockets when usually it's not. I just want to mention, this is a really interesting statistic. So 90% of Australian property investors get stuck at one or two investment properties. And when I say get stuck, if something works well, you'd keep doing it. If something generates the desired results, you'll keep doing it. Usually when you get stuck at one property, it's not usually by choice. It's either been a very dud property or something's happened in your circumstances to stop you buying more. Something works really well, it's also helping you to do it again. 90% of Australian property investors get stuck at one or two substandard investments. 80% of all investment properties purchased are new house and land packages. Okay, there's a very strong correlation between the both. House and land packages provide capital growth. The hypothesis, remember, was well-selected house and land packages in up-and-coming new precincts can provide good capital growth. That's false. Okay, they barely beat inflation, which is unacceptable, and compared to established dwellings, you are leaving $76,000 in capital growth on the table over a 5-year period. That is entirely unacceptable from my standards. Let alone, ask yourself, is that acceptable? The second advantage of house and land packages, let's test this one. A new home provides a high quality, low maintenance, shiny, set and forget investment. Let's investigate. Now, I want to talk about for a moment, I guess a phenomenon, all right? And I want to create a scenario here and relate it back to the new car market. All right, because the point I want to make here is that when you buy a new car, the moment you drive that new car off the lot, it's no longer a new car. It drops in value the moment you drive it out of that showroom. Okay, in many ways, the same can be said for new homes. People who want to live in a new home will go and build it themselves. They want to be the one that picks the keys up themselves. They want to be the one that picks the carpets and the colours of the houses. Also for an investor, right? You might have someone who rents your property and then after 12 months they move out and they go and rent a brand new property and they keep moving through that cycle. Okay, so just remember, a new house and land package is no longer new the moment you pick the keys up. It's a really important point. So it's no longer shiny and new. It very quickly becomes established and old. A new home does not guarantee lower maintenance. This is a really extreme example, but if a builder can do this, okay, just imagine the corners that are cut, the harebrained stuff-ups that are on the inside. Once an investor has agreed to purchase a house and land package, the developer's focus now shifts not from selling the property or marketing the property, it now shifts onto saving costs, all right? The building standards of many new homes have been exposed. Oh, sorry. The standards that I have seen personally over the last 10 years, okay, is simply appalling. Many new homes go through a period, and sometimes this is over a number of years, where there are constant barrage of defects and repairs that are required. Builders that have cut costs, they've used inferior materials, they've cut corners. Okay, sometimes these are uncovered by the builder, sometimes are not. Sometimes they're covered in a guarantee period, sometimes they can be picked up as defects and then they can be fixed before you take the keys. Sometimes they can't. Either way, it causes stress, distraction and annoyance for tenants. All right, these points need to be made. So let's have a look at this. Shiny and new, does it equal low maintenance? Okay, so I've had conversations with property managers who prefer new established dwellings. You know, they might be 15 or 20 years old, that are just built better. Okay, the standard of construction is just better. They are well tested. You've had people living in them for some time who have found all the faults. They've been fixed. Okay, you have lower maintenance on a certain class of established dwellings. I would say overall, this fallacy of new is better, new is shiny. Remember, the moment you pick up the keys, the moment you drive that car off the lot, it is now no longer a new property. This needs to be stress tested, okay? I wanted to probably make the point. People move towards an area for the wonderful jobs, but the moment, well, when they're moving to that area, the moment your property is sold at second hand, they will move down the street to a vacant lot and get that new car smell somewhere else. All right? We are not talking about a car here. We are making decisions on what makes us money, not what it's going to look like, not how it's going to make us feel, not like how we can tell our neighbours and our friends, hey, I just bought this new property. We are buying this property to generate wealth for ourselves and our families. Okay? With this in mind, this is false. New house and land packages do not necessarily mean lower maintenance. Shiny does not necessarily mean better. Let's keep moving forward, guys. Sorry, I go into a lot of details here. I get really passionate about this topic. Depreciation, the hypothesis. New homes greatly reduce your tax bill. Let's stress test this. Now, I want to begin by saying that depreciation should be considered a benefit of purchasing an investment property, not a key decision criteria. Frankly, in almost 20 years as an investor, I have barely paid any attention to the likely depreciation of a property that I would consider buying, and at least comparing new for old depreciation schedules, etc. Because, and I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm saying I've barely paid any attention to it because 95% of my focus is on the upside, is on making money, is on lowering risk, is on better wealth results. We are investing to make money, to generate wealth, not to necessarily save taxes. Okay? Depreciation exists to allow us to claim a capital loss. So let me just say that again. Depreciation exists to allow us to claim a capital loss, right? Somewhere along the line has lost money, and so the government is allowing us to offset that loss against our income. So that's the whole concept of now reducing our taxable income. I want to investigate what depreciation really means and how house and land packages lower your tax bill, which they do in many cases, but more importantly, how that compares against alternatives and what that really means in actual dollars, because that's the important thing here. So let's keep moving through this. Firstly, in this investigation, I reached out to a good friend of mine over at MCG Quantity Surveyors. Okay, Mike is, I've known for many years in the industry. His job is to generate depreciation schedules full time. Okay, if you don't know, depreciation schedule basically tells the tax department, the ATO, it's the evidence that they require to allow you to claim depreciation. Okay, now depreciation, you've got plant and equipment, you've got internal fixtures, you've got the actual overall build costs, right? You're able to, that cost of that build and also value add, renovation, whatever it is, that cost of that capital outlay is able to be claimed back because it depreciates over time. Things get older, the capital facilities, the build, the materials, it depreciates in value over time, and that capital loss you're able to take off your taxable income. I'm going to break that down now in a couple of scenarios, because this is where things get really interesting. And this is, house and land packages do provide tremendous depreciation benefits, real tangible results in lowering your taxable income. But what is not spoken of as often is that so does established dwellings. Not to the same degree, granted, but it's pretty close. And when I'll go through this example, it doesn't really make much difference. So, once again, the same example, $485,000 new house and land package. $240,000 in this example is the actual cost of the construction after the land costs, after the buying costs. On this, and this is straight from the horse's mouth, the estimated first year depreciation coming off your taxable income is $10,900. Assuming that you have a high tax rate in the 37% marginal tax rate, you will be saving $4,000 back on your taxes. Okay, that's great. That is awesome. House and land packages do provide good, strong, tangible tax savings. What is not often talked about is if you buy an established dwelling, and of this $485,000 purchase price, you've done a $40,000 renovation. Okay, it might be a kitchen, a bathroom, new floating floorboards, a simple 4-6 week reno. Okay, it's done through a builder, project manager, set and forget. The property manager might even do it. Okay, what you're doing is you're returning that property back to a new standard. It might be a 15, 20-year dwelling, so it's good, solid bones. That renovation cost, that building itself, the fixtures, fittings internally are all depreciating assets. Okay, not quite the same, but the indicative numbers for this type of property, straight from the horse's mouth, once again, is around $7,000 a year in depreciation. At the same 37% tax bracket, that's $2,500, around $2,500 off your back as tax in your tax return. So, granted, house and land packages, great for minimising tax. So are established dwellings, if you apply your strategy correctly. Okay? That's really important here. The difference, it's only $1,443 per annum. All right? Remember back, because house and land packages win the day here, an extra $1,443 at tax time, that's wonderful in your pocket. But remember what the cost was, $76,000 over 5 years in lost capital growth. You're never going to get that back, okay? It pales in comparison. So let's keep moving. Depreciation, the hypothesis, new homes greatly reduce your tax bill. Maybe they do. I'll leave that here. They do, but not as much as you would think when you compare it to the right type of established dwellings. Okay, it do provide great tax savings, but so does established in many cases. Okay, so it's something that it's not often said or understood. Group buys, rental guarantees. Let's move through these quickly, guys. So let's understand this concept first. Price growth, price pressure. This is simple economics. Price growth occurs when there's more demand than supply. It's a balancing act. If there's more supply than demand, prices are compressed, you might even have a correction. Now remember back to our first study. All right? New house and land packages have very little growth. We've established that. The reasons why, this reveals this in some ways. Typically, when there's one new house, there's many. They don't usually come in singles, they come as groups. All right? Where there's one new home, there's many, which equals lots of supply. And this now leads into the group buying phenomenon. Well, group buys definitely do allow us to receive discounts. Okay, that's not in dispute. I will make a couple of points on that, but by very definition, a group means that there's more than one. There's more than one supply. Okay, these properties are potentially flooding the market at around the same time. Everyone's buying at the same time. Everyone's renting them. Everyone's rental renewals are coming up at the same time. There is a groundswell of supply. Things are out of balance. And this is a big part of why we have lackluster growth on new house and land packages across the country. This might make a little bit more sense. Let's get some visuals up there. It might even make common sense, all right? No one will come back and pay more for a second-hand dwelling next door when they can't go down the road and buy a vacant lot and get their shiny new home. So these might be all new homes constructed as a group buy, and they're not going to go up in value until someone can't come along and build their own new shiny investment property or principal place of residence here, all the way down in this whole suburb around here until you get to the water, until you get to the shopping centres. Okay? It's not until that whole area is infilled and built out do you start having people having to come back and buy this established dwelling. This is now no longer new. All right? It might take years for this to occur. Years before people walk back into your home to buy it. Not saying you sell it, but this one next door might be selling it and that increases your value. Or people wanting to come back and rent your properties and pushes rent up. All right? It's not until they can't go and buy their own house and land packages until you start seeing demand or price pressure applied back to your property. Price growth. Group buys by definition mean there's more than one. And this just puts this phenomenon, amplifies it, right, to the absolute max. So group buys, yes, in many cases there are legitimate savings had from fair market value. But this is a moot point. Even if you are 50% or $50,000 under paper value of the property, you might be left holding a property that has severely limited growth characteristics. And when you compare this to established dwellings, well, firstly, established dwellings also give you tremendous opportunity to increase or to buy at a discount. Let me take that into investigation. With a new home, obviously you can team up, you can achieve a bulk buy, a group buy discount. Now these are types of buying groups that have been around for over a decade. They're nothing new. They come in and out of fashion. I can supply a list of these operators over time if you'd like me to go through the whole list with you privately. Okay? Clients can make paper profits when they purchase. All right? We've negotiated a discount, we get our valuation. Yes, there is paper profit sitting there. That sits there. But they potentially could be left holding the bag long after purchase due to the low capital growth, the substandard performance. And if they are forced to sell for whatever reason, who is going to come back and buy this second-hand dwelling or pay a premium for it when they can go down the road and build a new house and land package, when there's plenty of vacant lots still around it? The whole suburb hasn't completed yet. With a group buy, there are lots of other people around you who may also be looking to do the same thing as you at the same time. So remember, there's more than one buying at the same time, more than one renting at the same time. It can sometimes be a race to the bottom. And I'll get more onto that in a moment, the race to the bottom. Okay, it's really important. With established dwellings, you can still make money when you purchase. All right? I see one of them as, it's a different mechanism. All right? It's on the new home construction, it's a paper profits via a group buy. On the established dwelling, it is an under market value purchase, and it generally comes from buying something off market through circumstances where one party has more leverage, can negotiate more effectively in the marketplace. Okay, instead of buying retail, okay, so think of a group buy or a new home as paying retail. With established, think of it more as paying wholesale or cost price, and then value adding, restoring that property through to position itself as an absolute premium product in the marketplace. That person in the established dwelling has the opportunity to profit. So established dwellings still give people the same opportunity, but just in a different way. We might not necessarily be talking about large-scale renovations, but just quick wins to get chunks of equity, chunks of profit into the property and set the property up for capital growth. Now, I would say, which one is more preferable? For me, is it the paper profits associated with new homes, or is it the very tangible preferred equity creation through established dwellings? Okay, because you have a very hard time sometimes selling and realising paper gains. That really does need to be said. Let's keep moving forward because this concept flows onto the next, which is rental guarantees. Let's stop and think. Okay, I promise I'll slow down. Let's have a breathe. I'm going to take you through a scenario. If a property was sold in an area with lots of other homes completed at the same time, now assuming it might be a group buy scenario, they were predominantly bought by lots of other investors. There will be plenty of investors looking to rent the property at about the same time this year and each year after. This can cause dramatic gluts of properties that are available for rent in the market. When we've seen this occur in the past, we've seen major vacancy issues emerge in an area almost overnight. You know, it can only be sometimes 5 or 10 properties that just throw a market dynamic or balance out, and it takes months to recover. Rental guarantees do provide guaranteed income, that's true, but what are they covering up? How can you be sure if you have to call on that rental guarantee, the builder can even pay up? Are they still in business? Is the marketing company still in business? Are they able to honour that? What happens when the rental guarantee period ends? Remember, it is covering up a substandard rental market with its flaws. Remember, this is all, generalisations, but this is what we've generally seen occur over and over again. Who is left holding the bag when the rental guarantee period finishes and the market still hasn't recovered from all of the supply? It's really important considerations to consider. So, group buys, rental guarantees, are they something we can rely on? Are they something that is all that they are made out to be? Once again, this is a maybe. Technically, group buys and rental guarantees are a thing. They do protect income for a period. They do provide paper profits. But the more important question is, what are they hiding and who is paying for them? Someone is making money, a lot of it, along the line to be able to provide these types of concepts. So let's investigate that. I'm going to leave it here. Let's stop and think. Let's take a deep breath. Okay. I like to think of this analogy. We all know when you go and see a doctor, you pay them a fee. You might be paying out of pocket, or Medicare might be paying it. It might be bulk billed. Okay, but let's just say you're walking and you're paying a fee. You're paying that doctor a fee, a fair amount of money to provide honest, unbiased advice to help you get better. Okay, they are trying to help you from a place of care. They are paid the same amount every time by their clients to provide them a customized prescription. Okay, a unique recommendation based on their symptoms to provide a solution and the outcomes that client needs. Okay, the prescription is for them. Let's imagine an alternative universe, if you will. A world in which you walk into a doctor's surgery and listen to this. And instead of having to get your wallet out and pay your fee, your $150, whatever it costs, it doesn't cost you a cent. Even better, you have an assistant run up to you and gives you a beautifully made coffee, fresh pastries. They pass you a crisp newspaper. When your time comes, you get, feeling refreshed, but you get ushered into the doctor's suite. Okay? The doctor then begins making small talk, not necessarily relevant to you, very friendly, very personable, okay? Talking in cliches. Without ample consultation or care, they then prescribe you a pill. It could be red, it could be white, it could be green. They prescribed you a pill, not based on you, your preferences, your symptoms, you genuinely. They prescribed you a pill based on which drug company is paying them the most to recommend that pill to you. Okay? This is not the world that we live in. Thank goodness, okay, to begin with. But what does that say about the drug company that is willing to pay the most in kickbacks? All right? That's the real concern here. This whole scenario is a really scary thought. Who is protecting your interests when the service provider is taking kickbacks, is providing advice or recommending pills based on who is the highest bidder? Now, this might sound like a random example, but this is very similar to the house and land industry. You see, the builders and developers are the drug companies. They are selling their wares. Marketing companies, spruikers, sharks are the doctors. Only in this case, the sharks aren't recommending pills. They are recommending Australian investors buying dud investment properties, as we've seen here today, using sophisticated layers of obstruction. Obstruction to hide their deep, dark secrets. They are receiving breathtaking kickback payments from builders, developers to shift their dodgy stock. I'm sorry I've gone into so much detail. All right, I get really worked up and passionate about this, as you can see. I know which one I would prefer here, guys. I prefer full disclosure. I choose common sense. I choose logic. I'm on a path that might seem more difficult to begin with, but in reality it is far simpler and more reliable. I prefer to control my own destiny, to lower risk to increase reward. I lock my sights not on saving the cents in the dollar in my tax, but on in abundance, on strong growth outcomes, on profits, on returns. So in now almost 20 years as an investor, it is as plain as the nose on my face. I know which one I prefer. Now the main question is, which one do you?